Tosh, you've got two Cal guys starting in the Super Bowl on Sunday. Just talk about what that means to your program to have that. And also, I believe they might have come by to visit this week, and what was that like?
Yeah, it was awesome. Jayhawk, Craig came by. So cool. One, to just see how much pride they have in this place and the level of excitement for them and for us as a program as we're getting established here as a new crew, new chapter. So we exchange a lot of conversation, thoughts, dialogue on really both those subjects. And then I just absolutely grilled them in my office, and made sure that all the content and cameras were off about, their game plan, organized towards the Seahawks, what they're going to do to stop Walker and an elite attack, and two coaches that I know have a relationship with, two head coaches that I have great respect for, and really cool to just learn a little bit about their program and then their thoughts on the opposing program. So we actually got into game plan talks, trying to steal something possible for us to implement in our program, make us better.
And what does it say to recruits that two guys who, weren't sure things to make it in the league are starting on the biggest stage?
Yeah, I think the level of commitment, what's required there. But I think two guys, as I've done a little research on them, that they're elite when it comes to the mental aspect and the preparation. So I'm sure that for our program and all, when a guy wants to go attack that dream from the preparation standpoint and what's required mentally, those guys were obviously both extremely sharp. Me just going through and grilling them, asking them questions, them having answers and the confidence that they have of, how they approach the game. So, but really the subject this week, that's what's so cool to see. I think it's hidden a bit with the academic prestige of this university, which we celebrate, myself, first and foremost, promoting that and how rich the NFL tradition is here, the combination of it. But today is a Wednesday, so just from Monday to Wednesday, the number one overall pick in the draft's been in my office, Jared Goff, right? 24th overall pick, Cameron Jordan, Marshawn Lynch, Jayhawk, Craig, Deshaun Jackson, make sure I'm not missing anybody there. And then Kayvon Thibodeau's coming here tomorrow. Lorenzo Alexander, of course, who's on our staff. Make sure I'm not missing anyone else. You think of anything, Tim? Or Tyler? What's that? Totally Bannicane. Very thankful for that. He'd be pissed if I left this place, right? So two-time Super Bowl champion, right? So every one of those individuals have been here, in the last 72 hours, watching us working out, speaking, to the staff, to the team. So super cool, to be around that here, but reinforce also how strong the NFL tradition is, coinciding with the academic tradition and the life coinciding with football and after football.
I'm just curious, how many flights have you been on over the last month?
I think I could tell you the answer. Well, just in the last 2 weeks, I could tell you, I think it was 28. I think it was 28. There you go.
Is that round trip or one way?
That would be one way, I think.
So, Tosh, we've come in here and have changed the narrative about, we get solid talent in here, but we want the best of the best to be in here. What are the steps?
We got what on talent?
In the past, the program's got solid talent, but now it seems like, the best of the best is the target instead. What do you do to change the narrative to get these top-level guys to say, well, Cal's been okay lately, but this is the place for me?
Well, how you change that is the results ultimately, right? So we're not there yet as far as the opportunity to go, win at the highest level and attempt to do so. So for right now, it's the vision, the culture that we're attempting to establish right now. Of course, once again, a very unique place in the combination of having the number one public institution in America attached to your name, along with the NFL tradition. So no matter what, that's something, a huge, strong selling point. And I think an undervalued deal that this place offers is, when you have the number one degree, what does that really mean? What are you doing with it, right? So asking that question, and typically individuals would say, well, it helps go get a job. Cool. What are you going to do with that job? And ultimately being really creative of how we utilize the amazing alumni base, here at Cal, and then being in a place really unique with the over 30 Fortune 500 companies accessible, literally that you can see a majority of those companies from our campus. When you look west, then you turn around east and see a mountainside, that continues into from 5 minutes from our football field, a lake that I used to fish when I played here, so truly a different place, where you could be surfing at the beach or at Pebble Beach or up in the snow, skiing or snowboarding, all within relative, really close access and mileage from our campus.
You brought in a really talented portal class. How complicated is it to get 50 new people, a lot of them being portal guys, to gel and be a team that can be an impact team that can challenge for the playoffs?
Well, if we do it right, we've already started that process of really over 8 months of trying to establish a culture and have that permeated within the entire organization. So starts with who and our staff is, right, and the messaging upon our players, and having a contagious exchange of our culture, the information, what's going to build us into what we want to be, right? So fortunately, leaving the NFL and being a part of a process for the last 4 years in college football, I've been involved in it, and then the goal is to do it better than it's ever been done before. So attempting to do that, on a daily basis.
Coach, you mentioned how you were getting very little sleep throughout your time that you were preparing for not only the national championship, but you were preparing for recruiting for Cal. So what kind of stress did that alleviate for you after the season ended, that you could go in and really attack the portal?
I don't know if probably zero. As far as stress, the way it's built, if anything, it got increased because you're do your best to, tackle that incredible time, as you mentioned, of playing, coaching in 3 playoff games, and then assembling a staff, assembling a roster, attempting to retain the roster. Also, at that time, taking a lot of pride of attempting to leave a great university and people that I care and strongly respect and love, like Dan Lanning, Rob Mullins, and a great staff that I've been a part of, where doing it the right way, and coaching to the best of my ability, not having any potential portal talks during that time, right? And then when it does end, then you change gears and you see, including some of the young men, we ended up getting, 4 total from that roster. Not one of those guys was a bona fide starter, there. So, making sure you depart the right way, so to be clear, my admiration, my respect, my love for Dan Lanning, the University of Oregon, an amazing place, that's really been a big part of affording me this opportunity too, so having doing my best to finish the right way and then begin the new chapter here. And then the new chapter, when it begins, you're basically, involved in a very limited time to whether continue or finalize the roster as individuals, are deciding their futures that actually go into the portal. What was unique about my experience is, whether it was the year before, 2 years before, I don't know how many people have ever been a part of that, right? So I wish, when you come into these situations now, things that came up from a CAI this morning, if I can reach out for advisement, Dan Lanning's a great resource. Nick Saban's a great resource. Urban Meyer of how you handle a certain thing when a situation happens in a game, for example, right? Well, I don't know how many blueprints there is of coaching in the playoffs, assembling a staff, recruiting in the portal for a different university, that while you're representing both two universities at that time, one as a head coach and another as a defensive coordinator, I don't know how many blueprints there are. So I searched, and that search ended in about 60 seconds as far as who do I even call that's gone through this, really at this extent, right? So all you can do is attack it to the best of your ability. And then, I think the most effective way is trying to win that moment or that day, so that's what we attempted to do.
And it seems like you've learned a lot from your time with other coaches, either in the NFL or in college football. How do you apply the culture that you've learned with these coaches to Cal, where you learned your own culture here at Berkeley?
Well, I think that word in itself is used very loosely, and my goal is to be the opposite of that. So, it's about not the word culture, what's our culture at Cal, and defining that, so that's what we've done in our first team meeting, was declare these are the pillars of our culture. We're not a copy and paste program, and how that culture is created is through the amazing experience that I've been afforded, with Dan Quinn, Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, Dan Lanning, and Raheem Morris, Bob Ladouceur, all the many leaders that I respect, have great respect for, and I'm sure I'm missing some of those individuals as well. But to identify what I believe in most, what I support most, and then build our own culture, and then celebrate that, right? Promote that, and then ideally permeate that within the organization, and identify all the principles and values that branch from that culture of what we want to be moving forward.
Tosh, your transfer portal class got pretty high ratings from these sites that do that. I'm wondering how you think you guys did, what you think the strengths of the class are, and specifically, what's your sense of the offensive line group you brought in?
Yeah, I really just based it. I haven't looked at a rating. I think probably in a decade now, as far as what others ratings. We have our ratings, and that's what's most important. So the evaluation period is extremely important, and to see if these individuals fit us. How competitive their mindset is, the mental and physical toughness that they display, the potential of leadership value, football intelligence, their IQ, and then their ability to adapt. The 5 core principles that you start there from an evaluation standpoint, as well as, of course, the measurables, and what they do out there on the field. So you identify the who can fit that criteria, and then go into the actual recruitment, phase when it's appropriate. So a lot of that just stems from the NFL, of how being a part of 3 different conferences in the NFL, of experience of how we draft players. So that's where a lot of it stems from, and then we go out, and the difference is you don't necessarily get to just draft, right? And then now you start the recruitment phase of bringing them here and recruiting them here. So very pleased overall with our class. And I think when you're consistently beating out, the programs of LSU, Indiana, Georgia, Ole Miss, some of those programs and who you're in competition, and that most likely tells you a lot about, those bigger premier programs want them to there. So probably reaffirming of those guys that you're bringing aboard. And, if you take, for example, our receiver position, I think there's a lot of high quality individuals, both in character and talent, that we've brought aboard here. So that was part of the mission, where I came aboard here and sat in this exact room for the first opportunity, and then left here and got in a plane and went to Hawaii, in attempts to retain our own roster. That was something where gave me an opportunity, with Jaron to prove being a man of action, of what, steps we're going to take forward. When you look at the receiving core, the offensive line, the running back core, to see firsthand in those next 30 days, 25 days of who's going to be coming aboard here, from this point forward, that hopefully put us in an opportunity to achieve our goals and win at a high level.
And that O-line group, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I mentioned the O-line just now, so I think strongly of the guys, that we acquired. And now we got to get them all on the same page, play together, and hopefully, our goal is to develop them at the highest level. So one, we could win, and for them to go achieve their dreams, get a high power degree from here, and get drafted as high as possible.
Jake, you got one?
Yeah, on the Cal website of the players that are supposedly signed, there was only a half dozen transfers. Are they different from the guys who have committed who aren't on that list?
I don't understand what you're asking.
It'll get updated as the day goes on.
Oh, okay. So there's no difference between those two
No.
guys? Okay, all right. What's the status of Jacob DeJesus? Is his appeal still going on, or what's that?
It is, yeah. So there's my understanding on February 10th there'll be a ruling there. So just doing everything we can to support, and ultimately there's a ruling that'll occur there. So that'd be a awesome thing for all of us, and that's not under our control.
What is the argument?
To my understanding, it's an eligibility exhaustion, right? But the fact that from a junior college, precedence that's already been set with certain individuals that have gotten a year back, that's a case by case situation. So there's details that they're ruling on there, and we would be in strong support and open arms if we have an opportunity for him to continue his roster or continue on our roster.
Tosh, two questions. One, you mentioned the pillars you have for your culture. Could you specify what those pillars are?
Relentless effort, ball excellence, power of unit. We define relentless effort as 6 seconds of hell when the ball gets snapped, of how we want to dominate our box. We want to be traveling from point A to point B as fast and violent as possible, and have a +2 mentality. That's how we define the relentless effort. Our ball excellence is based off of a 30-year NFL study of basically a turnover margin of protecting and attacking the ball. Our attempt to be the best in the business at that. And then our power of unit is our attempt to connect, prepare, and compete for something much bigger than yourself.
And then one kind of personal question for you, if you don't mind. You grew up around here, you played here, you coached here, you've been coaching for 15 years, almost 20 years. Have you taken 5 minutes, 25 seconds to kind of sit back and say, this is pretty cool, this is something I've wanted for however long, and now I've got it?
Nope. Yeah, we're so what now what? So got an amazing opportunity, and I think my wife just told me last night that this will be the first consecutive 48 hours that I've had off since August. So we get our first 48 hours basically starting tomorrow morning, where our staff now, post National Signing Day, will get a couple days here and the weekend where we'll have off and then return next week and get right back to it. So maybe after that I could answer it better.
Maybe during those 4 days?
What's that?
Maybe during those 4 days?
That's right.
Tosh, in your introductory press conference, you mentioned how you wanted the fellow Golden Bear alums to be connected to this program. In the lead up to not only this week during the Super Bowl, but the month and change before then, how has that connection played out from your perspective?
Unreal. You know, the amount of contact, calls, text messages, FaceTime, Zoom, you know, it's been so cool. And I think what's even cooler than all that is, like I just said, in the last 72 hours, we're talking about literally individuals that will be inducted into the National Football League Hall of Fame, number 1 overall pick, and then the guys that either drafted and their NFL career ended up like mine, getting cut immediately, short, never even playing a game, or some guys that had played for a year or two, and then guys that were never even afforded the opportunity to advance to the NFL. There's been just as many of those individuals as well to reunite on a much more intimate level, and just the constant attention of these guys coming back to the program, being involved, some guys not really being as involved, and stepping that up to a strong regard. And guys like Wendell Hunter, Chase Lyman that I played with, and just been a part of this program of close friends, whether those individuals were in my wedding, right, or guys that have moved on in the business sector, just constantly coming through here, and that's my invitation to them, is I want them around here as much as possible. So we have a complete open door, policy rolling here of those guys that have been close to the program to be here. So it means a lot to me. It's one thing to text, call, but what I would refer to as being a man of action, and actually coming here and then asking or be involved and coming around the program, whether it's speaking to our team or just telling their story, really. And so I think this place has been tremendous, when it comes to, again, that NFL tradition and representing, going back to the high power education, but also how we utilize that, and having all these successful business men and women, that have been a part of this program, highlighting how they got there, and I think that's what makes this place tremendously different. And what I want to improve dramatically is how we get there, like what are those first steps, and not viewing this as a life after football program anymore, or really recruiting spiel amongst all programs out there, but really viewing this as a successful operation coinciding with football, and not being a program that's going to have a career day and put it out there on social media, that how we're going to get involved with our players. It's going to be a career path every single week, so I think that the access to this program has, where millionaires and billionaires can be here literally every week, and be a part of our players' lives. That's a separating factor to a lot of programs out there. So something that I've committed to, and we've already kicked that into full throttle here. So since I've been afforded this opportunity to be here, that has taken place. So I know it's a powerful statement. Say it again: millionaires and billionaires, have been on this campus. We have not had a week yet where somebody wasn't physically a part of that category that's been on campus. I think that's something pretty darn cool to value and celebrate.
Tosh, you've had over 40 new guys come in the last couple of weeks. Are there any pleasant surprises that you can talk about, whether it's individuals or as a group as a whole, how you've seen them adapt in the weight room, maybe player-led workouts on the field? You obviously have expectations of guys coming in, but you're seeing them for the first time in person in your environment.
Are you talking about like an individual?
It can be individual or just in general, pleasant surprises with a group, a position group, the group overall.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I wouldn't be able to assess from a position group necessarily because their training is more so involving whether it's skills and mid-skill and bigs and edge and separated, not necessarily by position. So wouldn't really be able to declare an opinion of that. I think just having the presence of a big, strong, fast, explosive individual that jumps out. Certainly, I think there's some really impressive guys out there. Watching Adam Muhammad operate out there brings a smile to my face. And Ian Strong, Cooper Perry, Jericho Johnson, Nate Burrell, some guys out there, and there's certainly more that I haven't mentioned, but to see some guys that whether you have some past experience or some guys that you haven't, at the end of the day, I'm evaluating this and basing it off of an NFL model. So when I see some guys there that are showing a lot of potential, that it's very obvious that might be their pathway based off of how they jump, run, and explode, into and change direction. That there's a lot of guys, that get you excited out there right now.
The financial support in the program is night and day different from when you were here the last time. What are your thoughts on the support that you get from the people helping run NIL and just the generous donors that have kicked in at a level that's much higher than we've seen in years past?
Yeah, I think our staff and our organization just demonstrated, something special and really prove to everyone that, we're certainly not going to be pushed around in that category. So their roster, that we established, it starts there that we have to be in the ball game, right? It doesn't mean that we have to be the highest bidder by any means, but to be relative, in that discussion, and then just to credit our amazing staff of carrying out the message, the culture, and permeating that within, to work in an aligned organization is our goal. So I think it's constant improvement, in that direction of getting as many people involved. But, there's individuals that play an integral part of our success there. So individuals whether it's, I'm not going to be able to list them all, but Ron Rivera, Beth, Adam, Marshall Sherrington playing a huge role in that, Benji, and then, going out from there, and then the individuals that have been elite value, a couple of guys that come to mind of Kevin Kennedy and Randy Scott, amongst many more. So I'm certainly not including everybody that deserves, that fair credit. And there's also people that appreciate that they don't want their name said as well. So, which I greatly appreciate as well. So there's a whole team involved that's proven that we're here and we're here for good. And we can be in those conversations, and then the goal is to just keep climbing, and benefit from the momentum that's been created with that discussion.
And another way that it's played out with the increased financial support is you guys have a much, much bigger staff than we've ever seen. And you've worked in a couple of organizations, namely Alabama and Oregon, where you have a lot of assistants working with position coaches. Can you talk about how that plays out and helping make a team better when you've got more eyes on the guys that they're coaching?
Yeah, well, a huge selling point and a goal for myself is that every individual that's on our team and every potential individual that we're going to be, recruiting in the talent acquisition phase is that we have the ability to provide every single source for that individual to be the best version of them, right? So psychological support, spiritual support, academic support, how we develop them as a football player themselves and as an athlete, how we develop them as a student athlete, our strength and conditioning staff, how we incorporate the Cameron Institute, right, an elite institution that we have literally 45 yards from our doors that, apparently hasn't been utilized a whole bunch yet. So myself, going there, being present, asking questions, getting informed of how we could utilize and the career development plan, how we can get more involved in the community, how we can approach things differently from the mental approach and mental health. These are just, discussions every day, and then again, tying them in a strong level. Our vacation has begun already technically. I'm here with you guys. From here, I'm going to the business school. I'm going to the academic support building, then the law school. I met in the Cameron Institute yesterday. Tonight we'll have a 7 p.m. Meeting in this room with our entire team of a culture building exercise. We're going to have a presentation done there where we have the opportunity. I am not qualified to express all the details of it, but moving forward where we can have a bone marrow swab of everybody in our organization and players, that's going to lead to the ability where when somebody needs a bone transplant, that if any one of us DNA coding aligns with them, that we can provide that and have a quick procedure that I'll be the first one to sign up for, that can help somebody that needs that, that might be life-changing or altering for them. Any possible way, we can improve, and grow as a program. So that's the mission every day. I don't even recall what the hell your question was now, so hopefully I answered it. But that's moving forward, is just growing every day and utilizing, the resources here. If I didn't answer your question, do you need to ask it again?
Mainly about what multiple coaches at each position, how it helps them.
Gotcha. So I did, all right, but how did we get there, right? So when I was coaching for the University of Oregon, I think my first conversation ever with Ron Rivera, I believe, was the Wednesday before that game, and that was being interviewed officially on Zoom with Ron and our awesome chancellor, Richard Lyons. So the potential of this occurring, began then, and some of those discussions, my agency with Ed Manowitz and Jimmy Stexton did an incredible job too of assisting and diving into the resources here, and so equipped me to ask some really critical questions. One of those was just the overall staff salary pool. All right, so out of 17 teams in the ACC, that was glaring, that something that could be dramatically improved, and that the University of California, led by Richard Lyons, Ron Rivera, and the starting point of dramatically increasing that staff salary pool, where we could be more of a competitive range, at the top of this conference rather than be in the lower tier. So Cal did exactly that, and put us in the opportunity where we could ramp up all these resources that we're referring to, and that now we're operating at a much higher level there. So I would not have taken this job if that didn't occur, and made that very clear. And just about all this exciting news that we're all experiencing, and the feel and excitement, I think that's a big part of it as well. So now we're in the position to do things such as hire an elite 13-year NFL veteran receivers coach, right? In Ike Hilliard, right, be in a position to hire an assistant receivers coach that's in the Hall of Fame here, and hire a passing game coordinator with offensive coordinator experience and an elite reputation, right? And Pat McCain. So just that alone, for example, right? There's 3 resources now on campus where our players, are afforded the opportunity to be coached by arguably the best in the profession, right? That's something very exciting for recruits. That's something very exciting for our players right now as resources, right? They can go be coached by those individuals on the field, in the meeting room, right? Then from there, get advised by an individual such as Kendall in nutrition from the Chicago Bears, right? And get presented of exactly why we're eating the food that we're eating, the importance of it, right? Not just being told to drink water, the entire phase of what that hydration means, what it means, and actually then turns into having a limited opportunity to have a concussion based off of hydration that I never knew before, right? So what this high level staff is doing now, the resources to go to Coach Novak and 5 additional qualified strength coaches, right? The interns now that are involved, assisting them, and the procedure of every aspect of our program, right? Supplying more learning specialists, more advisors, more tutors that can help our players and assist our players to truly go get this degree, right? That's what it all involves. So if we can afford our players, every opportunity possible to be the best version of them, there's no excuses.
When you kind of visualize the culture that you want to build here, and just in meshing together your new additions in the early days and getting everyone on the same page, how will you measure early success in doing that?
Can you start it off again? I got the last part.
Just like in visualizing the culture that you want to build, and then also dealing with meshing together your new additions, how do you evaluate early success in doing those 2 things?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we evaluate in 3 ways. After defining our culture is then defining what we want to accomplish per block, right? So we're right now in the midst of a block 1, if you will, right? So within that block, our goal is to be the most connected college football team in the country, okay? To attack our development plan. So before any single player set foot on campus, our staff went through an intense exercise of identifying what our players actually need to improve in. And we labeled 3 things per player. So when they came here, we identified 3 individual things that they could attack immediately the day they got here, and then attacking each one of those one step at a time, okay? So a development plan, right, a connection plan, and then outworking everybody in the ACC conference, right? So I think the first 2, there's potential to have a little bit more from a measurable or attainable standpoint, right? The last one is going to be difficult to measure, attain, not knowing what every other school is doing. So it all starts with the leadership. So for myself, I wanted to outcompete every single coach in this conference. To my knowledge, I did it in a certain way as far as being present here every single day at 7 a.m. while also being involved in the recruitment of the players. So those 28 flights every single day of my life, it started with the team at 7 a.m. in some form, some way, whether it's culture building, recovery, running, lifting, going back to January 19th and starting on MLK Day there. And then from there, flying out, right, driving out, going to, I couldn't even tell you how many different states in the country, Southern California, all starting first right here in the Bay in Sacramento, San Jose, and then reporting back to work. So, some of those reports, I would get back in the 3:30, 4 a.m. area and then make a decision whether go on the couch or go back to the hotel that I'm living in currently, and then be back here, at 6 a.m. where we start our process of prehab, rehab, preparation going into the 7 a.m. workout, but being present here every single day. We're not recruiting and focusing on, the subjects of culture and development, and then everybody comes to campus here, and then every staff flies out, and we're gone for, anywhere from 12 straight, 15, or up to 40 days, depending on your academic calendar and how the other structures are, where you don't even see your team. So I thought it was a huge opportunity. So every single day of our first workout program, our staff was present here at 7 a.m. with the team. I think that's different and original. That hasn't been a model that I've been a part of. But I think that meant something a lot to our players. Then when you do something like that, what do? You're at a disadvantage of obviously missing all the morning recruiting that's going on out in the country, right? So then we'd fly out and go about that schedule. We'll see if it works.
Last couple, Jake.
Yeah, did you able to get any transfers that you were looking at because you were able to outbid others monetarily? And did you lose any transfers you wanted because of money issues?
The second part to your question, of course, 100%, we lost players to that. The first part, I can't really answer because we got them. So, there's not, there's no real model, that anybody's operating off of here. It's just ideas and rules get put in place, and then you have to react to them. So, there's no curriculum. There's a very limited information. There's no model in place really, right? It's just ever changing. So, we learn the portal dates, right? Those change every year. So what you do is you react, right? So, as far as what we're offering, right? There's no real model to go off of, right? So it's all hearsay. It's unlicensed agents involved along with licensed agents. It's mentors, cousins, family members, that are involved of advisement, and just to kind of, so you could consider, we could be here all day. I think advancing on to, I had great conversations this morning with guys I have great admiration for. This morning, speaking to Dabo Sweeney and Mario Cristobal and a lot of other individuals this morning that I got a lot of respect and love for. We could talk for the next 6 weeks probably as far as the ever-changing part of our profession and dealing with the portal and competing in the playoffs or not competing in the playoffs. And so there is no model to go off of, right? So I don't know what other teams are offering. The way you get that information might be through a licensed agent, supposedly, right? Or it might be through his cousin's friend, that's here, telling you, what it's going to take for that player to receive. So that's what we go through every day, during that time before. And I think for all you guys too, one major point that this gives me a platform and opportunity to utilize is that the word tampering, I think, is used very loosely. I don't know if even coaches understand really what's going on so much, where technically, right, for example, I voiced, I believe in my heart that Dabo Sweeney had absolutely no knowledge of one of the players that left here, to that university, as far as what it took in place for him to get there and to even learn what state Clemson was in, So what's occurring is the representation, right, is just shopping the players, week 4, week 5, week 6. Hey, who wants to get in the sweepstakes of a player? So maybe whoever's representing that university or in some regard, I would like to, right? Like this guy would be a great addition to our roster, right? So without even a coach's knowledge or even opportunity to know what's occurring, there's being, these players are being shopped, and whether, how much communication is even with that player. I don't know that, right? I'm sure some have more than others. And then all of a sudden it just gets presented at some point that, hey, these 4 universities, they'd love to have you part of their roster, And so when the portal opens, you can go there and we could probably get a higher value or whatever it be. So none of that, right? There's no rules in place to monitor that as well. So I think everybody's got this not everybody, some people have a misconception of, what's occurring from a tampering standpoint, right? Where it's not necessarily the leadership in place, that's even involved in 90% or so of what occurs to build up to that point. And then an individual is motivated to go into the portal. That individual goes in the portal, and then now coaches can speak, talk, give their spiel, right? So there's a whole different other wave involved here as well, So my strong opinion on this, as far as, instead of talking about the way down the line, solving the world issues with the portal, is there should be an extremely simple approach to this, where the calendar of college football, right, full support of that starting early. I believe there's 18 weeks, for example, if you did start on August 1st, there would be an 18-week opportunity to play our entire season and to end on roughly December, the beginning of December, okay? And that would still afford, if you had one bye week involved, right? Which in that case, you could have multiple bye weeks still, which I don't think you need, right? But you could play your entire season, right? If you feel like August 1st is too early, great, move it to August 15th. It needs to start earlier, right? We play out our entire season, okay? You start the playoffs starts, there needs to be no break in between. You roll, not a single coach that I'm aware of wants a break, right? So you advance yourself. Could you silence your phone? Right? So you advance yourself right there to throughout December, right? The national title is played roughly around January 1st or so, okay? The season ends there. Then, right, the portal opens. Call it what you want, 1 week later if you want, right? Where now staffs, people can collect their thoughts, think about the next advancement of our program, right? Head coaches that are offered jobs, head coaches that are let go or dismissed from jobs, process everything that's occurred. The portal opens, right? Now everybody's in the same exact criteria as far as the football calendar, right? And then it's improved from an academic calendar, right, which is different of all universities, right? So there are people operating on quarter systems. There's people operating on semester systems. Okay, so that's all affected. However, so we're probably never going to get it to the point where we're all aligned there, right? But then you start relatively January 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, the portal opens, okay? And then from that point on, the portal closes. What that window is, roughly 10 days perhaps, okay? And we're all operating on the same field, right? People bring in visitors. We're visiting people off-site, whatever that looks like. And then the portal closes, right? Now we're there where our semester calendars begin relatively at that point, right? Somewhere of mid-January, later January, February, depending on quarter, semester, wherever that hits, and then we assemble our teams, okay, and then we therefore advance ourselves towards, attempting to get degrees, right, and building cultures and, advance into spring ball. So I don't know what's so hard about that. So, but that would be something I would love everyone to get involved in, and we could maybe bring some form of solutions to some chaos here. So, going to battle every day if a portal should exist and all that. I mean, those are maybe down the line and get involved with constitutional rights that I'm not qualified to probably go against that. So this is the stage of football right now, and would love, to my knowledge, every coach would would support a model very similar to that. So, would love to approach it that way, right? What else gets involved? TV rights, TV contracts, right? So, if August 1st is too early, right? Then, does it get closer towards mid-August or whatever it takes to get to that calendar, that we play our regular season out, see where that advances to the playoffs, and then have some form of commonality brought to this.
What's your opinion of what happened with Luke?
What's my opinion?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Well, that he was able to leave the transfer portal and go to Mississippi.
I don't really have an opinion of it. I don't know any details of it. Luke left here, before I ever met him.
Last one, Jeff. Tosh, you mentioned Ike Hilliard. Obviously, he's got great credentials, but beyond that, he's part of a Florida team that had never won a national title, and they won one when he was there. And as you guys are trying to get to that position, how valuable is he as far as what he went through in the story he can tell?
Who you referring to?
Hilliard,
Yeah.
Florida?
Yeah. And what is his...
I'm wondering, the fact that he was part of a program at Florida that won its first national championship, what can that mean as you guys aspire to head that direction?
I haven't had that discussion with him. I just more so great and admiration and respect of his resume, in coaching, and then obviously be a former first-round draft pick. We've had a lot of those conversations of, what that looked like and what it was, what it took, for him to become that. So we haven't dove too deep. We did have a conversation the other night about his experience there. He was with Spurrier at the time there, and some cool things that he mentioned about the program. But he's someone that I'm thankful to have here. It's been awesome to have here and have his expertise here, and a lot of staff members, that we've brought here. We've had a extremely strong NFL influence, a part of the staff. Having the two-time NFL Coach of the Year and Ron Rivera as our GM, I think that alone speaks volumes about the University of California. If you compare an NFL two-time Coach of the Year, in comparison to the majority of GMs there, their experience more so includes, being a recruiting assistant in college, and then being promoted as a GM as opposed to, somebody that's done it at the highest level. So I think that speaks volumes as well as about this university, of the vision of this place and who they wanted to be the GM there, and how highly involved he is, from an operations standpoint and just improving this place. So I'm very grateful to have him here and be a part of this program and a collaborative effort with him.
Pardon me for not knowing this, but did you have a previous relationship with Ike?
No. Yeah, I didn't. So I coached for the Atlanta Falcons as well as he did, and Raheem Morris, the head coach that was at the time there. Raheem has a strong opinion of Ike, shared a lot of positive things about him, as well as a lot of other individuals involved in the program. And so that's, as far as kind of vetting and just learning about him, that's what I always do is call guys that I trust, not really people that just know him, but I think very highly of Raheem, and who's now the defensive coordinator at the San Francisco 49ers. So I actually had some contact with Raheem this morning and invited him to come stay at my house as he figure out where to live around here. I hope he takes me up on it. We got to actually, I don't have a house either. A house that we hopefully get. So he doesn't know that part. So it's actually at the hotel. So, but hopefully, if we move into this place that we're anticipating to move into, then he can move in.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, cool. Appreciate you guys.